In this demonstration, we will go through the process of setting up the Call to Teams service to allow you to make and receive calls from Microsoft Teams in Office 365, using your existing phone system. The steps we will go through will involve getting everything ready for the Call to Teams configuration process, logging into the Call to Teams control panel to set up your Office 365 account. We'll configure the Call to Teams service to link your Teams users to your phone system. And finally, we'll test the service by making and receiving some calls in Microsoft Teams. Before we begin, you need to get some important information ready. You will need to temporarily make a spare Office 365 user license available. For users that you wish to connect to Microsoft Teams, you will need to have SIP credentials for devices on your existing phone system. Since we'll be configuring your Office 365 account, you'll require global admin rights, so you need to have an account with that access level. To compile the required SIP and phone number information, you'll need access to your existing phone system. SIP credentials are typically used by normal phones to connect to your phone system, so either create a new device for your users, or use the details from an existing device. Use this table to also record the phone number for each user, as you will need that later. To find user SIP information, we have logged into a standard PBX, and gone to the area where we manage users and devices. We'll take a note of the phone number for our users and then go ahead to manage devices. Here we can see existing devices, or we can add a new device for this user to use Call to Teams. Let's add a new device for this user, so they can keep their existing desk phone configured. We'll enter device information and take a copy for our worksheet. The information we need to record on this PBX is the SIP realm, username and password. All phone systems are different, so if you are not sure about this step, contact your phone system administrator. We will copy Adele's information from the PBX portal into our worksheet. Then we will repeat the step for Brian and Christy. This completes our information gathering stage, and we are ready to move forward to the next step. When you purchase your initial Call to Teams subscription, you will receive an invitation to log into the portal. You will use your Office 365 credentials to log in. When you log in for the first time, you will be asked to give the Call to Teams portal permission to read and make changes to your Office 365 account. Check the permission box and proceed to the portal. To start configuring the service, go to the Services tab. Here we will set up the connection between your phone system and to your Office 365 domain. First of all, let's configure the phone system. Select the appropriate phone system from the list of available phone systems. Now choose the country you are in, and copy the required PBX information from your worksheet. Save this information and go to the Teams tab. From the Teams tab, click the Enable Services button. Call to Teams will now ask for permission to configure your Office 365 tenant further. First, you're giving Call to Teams permission to run the voice PowerShell. Next, you're giving permission to configure your Office 365 user with the phone numbers you provide. Call to Teams will now start the initial configuration of the Call to Teams service. During this phase, Call to Teams will use a spare user license to make the necessary changes to your Office 365 account, so that you can make and receive calls. Please have at least one spare user license available for this step. It will only be required for the duration of this setup stage. This stage may take several minutes, and the time it takes depends upon the internal Office 365 platform. The Teams admin guide available in this screen provides more information if you think it's taking too long. Once the Sync Now button is showing complete with the green check mark, we are ready to go ahead and configure our users. We'll add the users from our worksheet and get them ready to use Call to Teams. To configure users, we need to select the Users tab on the top of the portal. Here we can see any existing users that have been created, and the button to create a new user. When we click the Add User button, we can enter user information into the form shown. Call to Teams will provide us with a list of users in Office 365 that are able to use the service, as they have the Microsoft Phone System, or E5 license applied. If your users aren't showing here, make sure they have the correct license in the Office 365 portal. From the worksheet, enter the user's phone number if one hasn't been applied in Office 365 already. If you enter a phone number here, Call to Teams will apply this to the user, so you don't need to log into the Office 365 admin portal to set this up. Enter the SIP username and password. Depending on your phone system, you may need to enter the username into both the SIP username and auth username fields. Finish off by clicking the Add button. Once you have created a user, or a group of users, you will see that the Sync button has changed to Sync Required. This means Call to Teams wants to apply the changes to your Office 365 account. Click the button to apply the changes and add the phone number to the user. We'll finish adding our remaining users, and click the Sync button to apply the changes. Once users are set up, you can see that they have successfully registered on your phone system, as the registration indicator will show green. If there is a problem with registration, the error code will also be available here. Testing the Call to Teams service is straightforward. Users with the Call to Teams service enabled will have a calls icon in their Microsoft Teams program, and when they select it, they should see a dial pad and their phone number. Be aware that sometimes it takes quite a while for the dial pad to show up. Look at our troubleshooting guide if you aren't seeing the dial pad in your Teams client. Using the dial pad, place a call. This should ring out like any phone connected to your existing phone system.
You're through to Qnify, leaders in unified communications
Also make
innovation.
some test calls to your DID or extension, and you'll see the Teams client ring. Call to Teams also works with the Teams mobile and Mac client, so be sure to test those too. We hope you found this setup guide helpful. If you have suggestions about how we can make it better, please let us know. Thank you, and goodbye.